Good evening, everybody. We're super excited tonight because we have a legend coming on the show, and then we have Stephen Hale coming on. So, as well. So, anyway, a couple things. We're talking with the Schlafly folks tonight, so I'm very excited. I love Schlafly. So, it's one of my favorites breweries. I have a great Schlafly story from my visits to St. Louis a, a bunch of years ago. The APA is one of my all-time favorites, and the Kolsch. Anyway, first of all, I have a couple of announcements for the store. So we're in the middle of customer appreciation days. Tomorrow's the second day. Thursday's the last day. 30% off wine, 20% off spirits, 20% off craft beer. Friday night, we are actually having a Schlafly tasting. So come on in and try all the beers we're talking about tonight. And a couple other ones, a raspberry hefeweizen, the summer lager. So we have a couple of newer things coming in from them. Kolsching cans, which is killer. And then a couple other announcements of what's happening. Next week, the 7th, the day before Mother's Day, we're doing a gin festival at the store. So everybody, we've got 3 local craft gin, well, 2 local, 1 Vermont craft gin distilleries coming in. They made special cocktails for Mother's Day. We've got some live music with Allison Toms, who is fantastic. So come on in. On that, it's 2 to 5 on the 7th. We have another festival coming up with Devil's Backbone on the 21st. More details to come. And then we have our big festival, which is our festival with Other Side Beverage Project on June 18th. So there's a poster contest going on. I don't know if you guys have seen this on the Facebook page. So basically, we're brewing a beer for the festival, which is a double dry hop Kolsch, which is essentially a nod to Schlafly, because I love that beer. And so the local breweries that are brewing it, Firm, Idiom, and Pariah. So what we're doing is we need a poster for the festival, the Other Side Whitey's Break On Through Festival. And what will happen is whoever wins the poster contest that poster will be the label for the beer. So entries end next week. If you go to our Facebook page, all the information is there, who to send your entry to. It's me and Dan at Other Side, mdbeerguy@gmail.com, and Dan at Other Side Beverage Project. I'm not sure about that, so look it up. .com. But anyway, send in your things, your poster ideas. We've already gotten a couple of them, and they're super cool. So I'm excited to see what people come up with. So if you're a graphic artist, if you're just somebody that likes to draw, whatever, we're going to take all comers. What we're going to do, it'll end next Wednesday. We'll judge, and then we're going to get them printed and put the top 3 in the participating breweries that are doing the collab. So, and then we'll let the public vote on it for a week, and then whoever wins that wins the contest. Who wins the label? So you could potentially see your art on store shelves in the local area. So anyway, enough about that. Without further ado, we are going to bring in some of the fine folks from Schlafly Brewing. We're excited. This is my man Dan. There he is. He's got the best license plate behind him, but he's in Virginia. Look at that license plate. That's so badass.
That is Tom's actual license plate, Tom Schlafly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. This is Stephen Hale, founding brewer and man about town. And I see Holly on here, and I don't know who that is. Do we know these people?
Who, Holly?
Yes.
That's my sister.
Oh, she's going to say hello.
Yes, my sister and my mother are joining us.
Oh, very cool. Well, there you go. Good evening. How are you guys?
Hi,
Are you excited that your son is getting ready to retire?
We're very excited.
Hi,
Nice to see you
very.
all.
Are you going to live in the boat, though?
We're visiting the boat. We're going to sail with Stephen and Sarah.
Oh, really? Very cool.
Very excited. We'll sail a little bit with them at some point. But
So this is like one of the last Stephen Hale sightings for beer.
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
Well, Rob, we don't know that yet. We don't know what the future will hold with Schlafly Beer and Stephen and Sarah. There could be some collaborations in the future or something. So
I'm
Oh.
always
will
up
make
for
its
one.
way up the East Coast, not far from you.
There you go. Where's home port gonna be when you set sail?
We picked the boat up in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and one of the first places we'd like to sail it to is coastal Maine. So
Oh, you'll be going right
that's
by
one of the
us.
goals.
You'll be going right by. So that's very exciting.
We'll make
So-
sure to stop and pay a visit to you in definitely in the Annapolis area. So
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I would love to do that.
so
So
I realized, yeah. Sorry, I should
you're
tell
good.
Holly to mute her screen somehow.
sorry.
okay, that's
Down
fine.
I'm sorry about that.
But you're good.
Down at the
All
bottom
right.
is a way of muting. So I've never used StreamYard before, Rob. There's a new thing for all of us.
Yeah.
Well, this is like, well, we started doing this like over the for the pandemic. I mean, this is like an easy way to stream out and to stream people from all over the country. We've had people from all over the country on it. So we're gonna
Yeah,
have Holly.
There we go.
We're gonna put Holly down below.
I muted it for a minute. Sorry about that. My mother is coughing a little bit, but I just want to say how proud I am of Stephen, my younger brother. Very proud.
Well, there you go. We're proud of him too.
Congratulations, Stephen.
Thank you, Holly. You also ought to know that Rob is like one of us. He was born in Massachusetts, and I can't use the nickname in polite surroundings on air like this, what we call people from Massachusetts.
I kind of thought so because I saw the Boston Red Sox behind there and thought, oh, gotta love that guy.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Very cool. Well, Holly, thank you for joining us. It was nice to meet you.
Nice
Maybe
to
someday
meet
it'll be
you.
in person. And
Nice to
there you
meet
go.
you. Well, we love supporting anything Stephen's doing with Schlafly, and nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Happy Mother's Day as well.
Thank you. Cheers. Cheers to you all.
Cheers,
Cheers, I
Holly.
don't have any
Don't forget
beer.
to press the mute button. You can feel free to.
I'll press mute with mom coughing. Okay, love
All
you.
righty.
All right.
All righty, Rob. Thanks for that little interlude there. We're very excited about the program.
Yeah, very cool.
it's
Anyway,
pretty-
let's get talking a little bit about Schlafly, and then we'll talk about beer specifically and your role in the company over the last 30 years, right?
And at this point, we're approaching 31, but yeah, over the last 30 years.
So
Stephen was the second employee. Is that right, Stephen?
It was there was a small group of three of us. The original general manager, Tom Flood, who worked there for many years, and Dave Miller was the original founding brewmaster, and he has written 6 books on home brewing. So any of the
Wow.
homebrewer geeks in the audience will have heard the name Dave Miller because of the number of books he's written. And I was the assistant brewer, and then a couple of years later took over as head brewer.
how big a brew house was it back then?
Same size it is now, 15 barrel in the original location downtown. Our second larger location has basically it's a 25, 30 barrel brew house in Maplewood, about 7 miles away. And that's the one that does the bulk, the yeoman share of the production, bottles, cans, and kegs. But the tap room still brews. It's an original 15 barrel brew house. Back when there were, well, let me ask this question first. How many breweries are there in the country now? Almost 10,000, 9,000 plus.
9,000 plus.
Yeah, there were 312 breweries back when we opened in 91.
That's amazing, and to see the growth. And so you guys are like you're up there with the OGs, basically, right? Sierra, Sam. I mean, you're all within like 4 or 5 years of.
Couple of years older than some of the ones that are more famous than us now, but we've got a good lineage. I believe New Belgium was also 91. I had a list for a while. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but there's a small group, half a dozen breweries you would recognize. Some of them have closed. since then. But 30 years is a good long run in this industry, as we all know.
And you guys are building a new spot right outside the stadium, yes?
No,
Isn't there a new
we're
tap room
building.
being built?
We're actually building a Major League Soccer stadium across the street from our brewery. I'm just kidding. We don't have $400 million to do that. We leave that up to other people. So I've been filming it. In fact, I took some footage yesterday and haven't had a chance to post it since I captured the video. But no, that Major League Soccer stadium, the St. Louis City SC Soccer Club.
Right.
Will be starting its next games in 1 year, maybe less than a year at this point. March of 23 is when they're doing it. They built that stadium. I like to think of our co-founders, Tom Schlafly and Dan Kopman, as being very prescient in selecting their location, knowing that there'd be an MLS stadium built across the street 30 years later.
Yeah.
That's some Nostradamus stuff right there, I think. It sounds like.
I mean, it's right across.
They were it, the co-founders, Nostro and Damas. They did it together.
Is Dan still over at Heavy Seas? I never see him.
Dan's a couple miles from you, Rob. He just left Heavy Seas, but he's still in Baltimore.
Okay, yeah. I saw him not that long ago, but I wasn't sure that he was still over at Heavy Seas. So I was just.
He was then. He's not now, and obviously not at Schlafly anymore. But he still gets the credit with Tom for opening from across the street for what's now this monster, beautiful soccer stadium.
Yeah.
So this is a whole new tap room, or that's the old tap room that they wanted to be next to you guys. They were like, we have to build a soccer stadium right next to Schlafly because we know where it's at.
Yes, exactly. That's why they chose the location. If people are asking directions to the new stadium, they probably tell them, yeah, just go to the Schlafly tap room. You can't miss us because it's a big, beautiful monster right across the street. And Rob, just so you know, that the tap room location, the Schlafly tap room downtown, was a glimpse of the building is featured in the movie Escape from New York. So Snake Plissken, wait, I think it's his left eye, walks past the tap room on his way to a significant scene in that movie filmed in 1980 in St. Louis. It's a classic.
Wow. There you go. Tidbits for all you trivia buffs out there.
Rob, you said you've been to St. Louis, right? You went to
I have. It was a long time ago. It was like
it hasn't changed much there, except there's a giant stadium across the street now. But
when I was in St. Louis, they was building the new Busch Stadium, but they still had the old Busch Stadium.
Yeah.
So where I sat in the old Busch Stadium, you could see into the new Busch Stadium before they took down that wall. So what was that like? Right field? I can't remember.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah,
that was my pre Schlafly for me. But when I lived in St. Louis myself, when they were doing that switch, it was kind of cool. They were building the new one.
Basically around that one corner. It was cool. So that's where I actually sat. I went to I forget who it was, the Cardinals and maybe Houston at that time. It was one of the playoff games. It was a year after so it had to be 2008. I still have it had to be 2008 because it was a year after the Red Sox beat the Cardinals in the World Series.
We knew you'd bring that up one way or another, Rob. We knew you'd bring that up.
Well, naturally.
Doesn't matter how long ago it was.
Well, we won't matter. There you go. We got the globe from the first one. See that?
Look at that.
So there you go. So let's talk about these beers. Well, here's my Schlafly story. So we were out in St. Louis, and what's the big grocery store chain?
Schnucks, yeah.
Schnucks, whatever it is. What is it with you guys and the SCHs and everything? Right. Schnucks, Schlafly, what the hell? Anyway.
Well, how about Schlitz and Schaefer? Let's just say there's a long tradition of great beer names with beginning with that.
Fair. That's totally fair. And anyway, I first had APA there. It was when I was first getting into craft beer, and I brought home like 3 cases of the original APA, which is still one of my all-time favorite beers. Like, you guys did you guys bring that back?
We never went away completely, but it's mostly St. Louis market only, at the tap room, at the bottle works. You can get some 12 packs, 6 packs now at Schnucks in the St. Louis area. But actually, if you live you're living in this area and we're making it up to Philly, there's a bar up in Philly called Sutton's that has IPA on. All year
and they
round.
still have it?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that beer was terrific.
They have the APA on tap?
Yeah, it's their house beer.
Nice. Isn't it called Shuttons, just to make Rob happy about all the SCH? And hey, before I take another sip, I want to show Dan the glass that I'm using.
Nice.
Oh, Sabre. Are you guys in Sabre this year?
No, we haven't really been in it since we discontinued our founding membership part.
Shaver.
But yeah, no, Dry Hopped APA was kind of one of those beers that everybody has really fond memories of, and it was a victim of change, if you will. Trying to do new things and stuff, and it wasn't because the beer itself wasn't awesome. A lot of people,
that beer was awesome. I love that beer.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorites too. But we won't go into the shorted details of it.
So, what was the original? The original flagship beer was Kolsch, right?
Pale ale.
Okay, so it was that beer.
There you go. Thank you, Dan.
This is the English style pale ale.
English style pale ale. That one.
So when did Kolsch come around? Because I remember years ago, Tom and you were on with me at the store, and Tom was all about Kolsch, right? I mean, Tom Schlafly has done a lot of things in his life, but I distinctly remember him talking and saying that because he went to Georgetown, so there's a tie to DC, and I remember him saying one of his proudest moments of his life is when he could walk across the street to the Packy across the street, and they had Schlafly Kolsch in that package store. And I think he had a light, right?
Famous little liquor store, and right next to Georgetown. I went there, helped them resurrect the neon, the Schlafly neon that they put back up in the window, and he was absolutely thrilled to see that Schlafly beer was there. Yeah, that gives you one of the great joys.
Definitely a closer connection for Tom. It was being his wedding beer, as we call it, at the brewery. But Pale Ale was the first beer,
right, that
we brewed. So that one's been around longer than any other. Kolsch came around in the late '90s, if I'm correct.
Earlier than that. It was shortly after Tom and Ulrika got married in 1995, because his wife Ulrika is from Cologne, Germany, and through her introductions, Tom met the owners of the Geffel Brewery, and we all know Geffel Kolsch in this country because it's a hallmark beer of the world. And Tom got to know Heinrich and Angela Becker, who owned Geffel Brewery, and they sent us a keg of yeast, shipped us. Let me clarify, FedEx, a keg of yeast. Beautiful, Dan. Look at that.
Look at the glass too. He's got the glass, proper glassware.
That old school?
It actually says Kolsch on it. That's sick.
Yeah, it's got the old label on it too.
It's got the old label on it. So you know what the cool thing is? Kolsch's are coming back.
Yeah, for sure. You see them around a lot. We take a lot of pride in it because we like Tom or that Stephen just mentioned. It's got that yeast that's centuries old. It's from Cologne, and it's really just a key ingredient in a Kolsch. And the authenticity to a traditional Kolsch is what we really love about it. But Kolsch is in general as a style is definitely I've seen them pop up more and more. I haven't had a chance to try them all and to compare them, but you know.
Yeah, then we have access to. I think Union's Kolsch comes out in a few weeks again, and they run that all summer. There's a farm brewery not far from us called Slate who does a Kolsch, like a year-round Kolsch called Swagger. There's several
Swagger.
Swagger. Yeah, there's a bunch. It's like a style that's sort of like it's creeping back because, and you guys can address this better than me, probably. I feel like the pendulum is swinging away from hazies and big sours and that kind of stuff, and more into traditional styles like
Yeah.
lagers, Kolsch's.
I
Do you
mean,
guys see that? Do you see a swing back to? You've
You
always
see
had
it.
you've always had a solid core lineup anyway, but have you seen that
Yeah, I
swing
mean,
coming back?
you see it every day, so you probably know as well as anybody. But yeah, it's definitely, I've been saying it for years, and only now is it really starting to become true because we make a lot of traditional beer, so I want it to be true. That those styles of beer are becoming more and more popular. But I think it's everything goes in waves, and the hoppiness, the hoppy beers, the craze over all that is starting to fade a bit, even though it still dominates.
I mean, it still dominates the scene, but I feel
But
like
you're seeing the next wave starting, and it's more and more people like trying their hand at, really traditionally made lagered beers and beers.
like what's the biggest selling style do you think in like St. Louis? Like, is it hazies? Is it traditional styles? Is it
Bud Light.
Budweiser.
well, yeah,
Bud Light.
we're not talking about
Bush Light, maybe.
We're not talking about that. We're not.
No, but
Bud Light Seltzer.
I don't live in St. Louis.
Seltzer.
What I see is what you see, Rob. But Stephen, maybe you could answer that.
No, I'm in agreement with you guys, and this can be a long conversation. So that it doesn't take up the whole evening, I think people get into craft beer when they typically follow the path of learning to drink beer that are lighter lagers. Around here, that might be Stag, and obviously Bud and Bud Light. And in your part of the world, what are we talking? Natty Boh. I mean, when people start on lighter lagers and then they discover craft beer, they definitely work through to all sorts of IPAs, the full gamut of different IPAs, barley wines, imperial stout, barrel-aged beers, Belgian beer styles. It's a huge category. I've hardly grazed the surface, but typically people will then, after a period of time, realize they like a good old basic yellow beer in the general category, and that's a fairly broad category, but I think it includes Pilsner, Helles, cream ale, any kind of, I sort of touched on light lager, mentioning Helles. So one of the things we've always done, we've had Pilsner for so many years. It's not in the current portfolio, but our summer lager is out there every summer, and that is a nice light Helles style lager. Its other half cousin twin, if you will, is white lager in the wintertime. That's a Keller beer style, if you will. Also a light lager, slightly unfiltered. People basically like a well-made beer. It doesn't have to be a super light lager, but palates change over time too. So I know a whole lot of us at the brewery like to try all the new beers, but you may not make an evening full of A, very strong beers, and B, very hoppy beers or beers that are full of flavor. That's more of a snifter type to go with a beer dinner or just a couple of them. But if you're out in the, if you're outside, if you're barbecue, if you're at a sports event or something, it's for those of us who like beer and drink several beers on an occasion, it's going to be something a little lighter and a little bit of a more moderate alcohol content. And that's why the Kolsch is such a great style for that, let alone the tradition of Kolsch, Rob. And I know this is swinging back around to the Kolsch conversation, but that the tray that the Kobe bartenders and servers use in Cologne and in in Dusseldorf that makes alt beer, sort of the cousin of Kolsch beers. Don't tell them I said that. That little tray holding those little beers coming around, it holds just under 7 ounces in that Stange glass. That is possibly one of the world's greatest traditions of beer. And if it's not on your bucket list as a beer drinker, try to put it on there, because it's a most amazing experience to be. If the three of us were sitting at a bar somewhere in Cologne or Dusseldorf, there would be 4 coasters on the table. I got a coaster around here somewhere. And the Kobe, the server who comes around, would mark off the number of beers we're having. And it's only a little under 7 ounces. 5 of those, 0.2 liters, 5 of them
Right.
equals a liter. So just like the big Maas liter, Maas Krugs, yep, a little bit smaller than the glass Dan is holding, Stange glass. It's just a
Same-
really
similar
beautiful
shape, though.
experience. Similar shape, yep. So
Straight-sided.
I'm not going to
Yeah,
get
those
off
are cool
the
glasses.
entirely just for now.
Hold on,
Yeah,
I gotta see what I have. Hold on, Dan. Talk about beer.
Yeah,
Well, I got a beer.
The Kolsch, that's it's one of the things that it's one of the beers that I started. I've been with Schlafly now for 7 years, and when I started, we had only been out here for a few years at that point, but Kolsch was the beer that people really recognized us for out here on the East Coast, and I think it still is one of the beers that people see as Schlafly makes one of the best Kolsches around.
Probably the best Kolsch around.
Gold medal, World Beer Cup.
Yeah, it's probably the. I mean, like I was saying before, when we're doing this festival, we were talking about what style of beer, and I was like, it's gonna be June, and I'm like, I don't really want to do like another hazy, and I definitely don't want to do like a fruited sour type of thing. And I've done obviously a number of collabs, and I was like, I think we should just go double dry hop Kolsch and knock it out of the park. So everybody was on board with that style, an easy drinking style. It'll be good for this sort of festival. So I'm pretty excited about how it comes. I think it got brewed today up in Idiom. So I'm excited. And they do a really good Kolsch themselves. They brew a stand, their own Kolsch. So I think it'll be a solid beer. And it's a good summer beer. That's what it is. So, it'll end up being about 5% or whatever Kolsch's normally are. And it'll be an all day type of drinker. So,
well, you mentioned easy drinking, and that's, when you were asking about trends in beer and the going more towards the lagered beers, it's almost tied into the lighter beers as well. Lower ABV beers tend to be, pretty popular nowadays. That something under 5% is appealing to more and more people.
Well, there's a lot of craft breweries that are like swinging into that style, right? Like, It's funny because you think of like that circle, right? So like a lot of craft breweries started because they were like, it was sort of like an anti mega corporation beer thing. And now it's swinging around to better ingredients in essentially what mega corporations put out, right? I mean, we had people tonight with the Union one. They put out one called Zadie's Lager, and we had 2 or 3 people that were going in there from Miller Lite and sampled it, and they bought a 12-pack of the Zadie's. I mean, it's made in Baltimore. It's keeping it home, and like in the past, I'm not sure you would have gotten those people so much, but because they would be afraid of it being too hoppy or this or that. But if you just say this is just an easy drinking lager, we scored 2 or 3 people.
Definitely more open-minded people nowadays. I've noticed, because we've always made lagers, so I've always been trying to, convince people to try it. And I definitely feel like more and more nowadays, and craft beer isn't like just like this cool thing that I don't want to be part of that, but it's more mainstream, and people understand it a little bit better, and they so they're a little more open-minded. I just did an event last Friday where I had Summer Lager, our Hellas Lager, on, and it was a very heavy Miller Lite, Bud Light drinking crowd, but we got them to try a lot of Summer Lager and, hopefully changed a couple minds, maybe not permanently, but a Bud drinker is still going to be a Bud drinker. But yeah, I mean, lower ABV is a big deal. Like all these beers behind me, where am I pointing? Our 30th anniversary pack there, those are all 5% or less.
Yeah, let's bring that forward because we want to talk about what's in there now. We're going to sample this on Friday.
Yeah.
So
this is the reeling in the beers. You guys, Steely Dan fans.
Got it.
Reeling in the
Very good.
beers.
Did you name that, Steven? Or you just,
Yeah.
I would love to take credit for that, but I didn't, sadly.
But yeah, it's got pale ale Kolsch, which we talked about. It's got our newest year-round beer, the Just a Bit Hazy IPA and low-cal IPAs. It's kind of intended to be, beers over the years. The first beer we ever made. Our big one in Kolsch in the 2000s and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, one of the big things that we're known for, especially out here on the East Coast, is pumpkin ale, which is an 8% beer. We make the best pumpkin beer, but outside of that beer, we don't really make anything over 6%. We have a hazy punch IPA coming out soon, which is 6%. For the most part, everything is around 5.5% or less.
right.
And, that's just kind of our MO. Light, clean, easy drinking beers. For the most part, we've got some of the hazies as well, but we try to make them, approachable. It's kind of a Midwest mentality that,
Right.
I think it translates, and I do agree with you. I think it's becoming more and more of a popular style or kind of outlook towards beer, which is great because we're not changing. Not after 30 years.
Not after 30 years, you're not changing it up. It's funny that the pumpkin beers, like what you there.
There we go.
Got to be careful with that on YouTube. They'll shut me down for that 30 seconds worth of music.
We'll go with 3 seconds then. Nowhere near 30 seconds.
Yeah, they'll still get you. Trust me. I did that. I had Sam Calgione on one time, and I probably played a snip. It was early in the morning, right? A snippet of the Beatles' "Good Morning," and they like took it right out of the video. Like they're like, "Oh, this is copyright infringement." So like the whole first like few seconds of the video, I'm just sitting there.
But that was my wife Sarah on guitar. So
Yeah.
what?
So I have the copyright on that. I have the copyright on that. So I can do that.
Sorry.
I was going to ask you about pumpkin beer because you have a great story about pumpkin beer and oatmeal stout, and they do terrific. The Stout Bout is probably my best-selling Schlafly package overall. We get that every year. It does really, really well because it's always different. There's like a fan favorite, and there's like I forgot what was in it this year. There was like a Mexican chocolate,
Vanilla milk stout,
caramel stout.
So the oatmeal stout. Steven, tell us the story about oatmeal stout and the pumpkin beer.
Well, oatmeal stout is one of the earliest ones, just like pale ale. It was on tap shortly after we opened our doors, and that recipe has remained pretty consistent since then. Like under 10% oats in it, caramel malt. There's not a whole lot more in there. It's 5.9, 5.7%. I always get APA's one, oatmeal stout's the other, just under 6%. And a super solid, when I say medium, I mean very approachable, easy to enjoy beer that meets a need. And this is the interesting thing about oatmeal stout. And I learned this a few years ago. In the winter time, you would think sales would take off for the oatmeal stout, but it's got a legion fan base that keeps the sales consistent. So there are a whole lot more. Stout season is more competitive in the winter. but it holds its own. It doesn't drop off. In the summer, it also doesn't drop off because it's one of the few available. Everyone shifts towards lighter lagers and wheat beers and summertime beers, but it's there steady on as a stout, and people still drink stout in the summer. So it's got this baseline consistency. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles like a Galaxy IPA or something like our Tasmanian IPA or pumpkin that gets a whole lot of attention for a short seasonal market. The oatmeal stout is year round. It's got a dedicated fan base, and it holds its own in the winter when it's got a lot of competition, but it has less competition in the summer, but it's still one of the few stouts available. So,
and it blends beautifully with the pumpkin beer.
And it actually blending them both together under duress at a beer festival up in Springfield, Illinois, about 12 years ago. Yeah, very much so. It became a Hop in the City beer the following September. It became our pumpkin stout. But the pumpkin is its own animal that just took off. Otto and the crew who developed that recipe, I think it was Otto and Dan, came up with a fantastic recipe. It's a little strong for me, 8%. It's a little spicy for me with the cinnamon, nutmeg, and clove, but it's dialed in perfectly, and people just absolutely love that beer. One of my favorite videos is from Ann Loves Beer, Ann Bacchetta from New York City.
Right.
Put together her own independent video several years ago where she tasted 16 pumpkin beers on her 1 hour pumpkin beer analysis release. And it was really fun to watch. And of course, she had to choose a favorite. I didn't know when starting to watch the video which one it was going to be, but it was Schlafly's Pumpkin Stout, which didn't surprise me. And it had heady competition. It had all the usual ringers in there, all the famous beers that everyone knows, all the famous pumpkin beers, and it stood out among them. And this is not Dan and me and other Schlafly marketing people saying this. This is the general public saying Schlafly's pumpkin beer is the best.
It still does. It still does pretty well. And I feel like for a while, probably 2 or 3 years ago, there was probably a pull away from pumpkin beers. Probably the year you guys weren't in market here. So that was 3 years ago. Pumpkin beers weren't that popular, right? So I feel like there was a little turn there for a while where people were went more for Oktoberfest and things like that. And pumpkin beers weren't the darling that they were 5 years ago or 6 years ago.
Pumpkin trajectory was up fast and hot and heavy, so you knew it was going to crash. And then there was a whole lot of anti-pumpkin fever, which meant that the distributors who were overwhelmed with 100 beers in their portfolio had to choose which ones to keep. Well, they should keep the ones that the fans liked the most. And there were some that just didn't sell as well. So sorry, pull those and keep the good ones. And we've always felt that we had a solid base to stand on, convincing the distributor to keep ours because it does sell well. So if 100 pumpkin beers aren't going to sell in the market, sell 20 or something that
sells. And I feel like a lot of people went to Oktoberfest at that time too. There was a pull away from pumpkin, and more people went into Oktoberfests, which is fine. But if you call it Oktoberfest November 1st, nobody wants it. Call it a fest beer. Call it a Mars. Call it whatever you want because everybody thinks it's old. So whatever. But and you guys make a great Oktoberfest.
Yeah, another example of just really true to style, perfectly done beer.
Yeah. So when's it come out this year? June?
It'll be here at the 1st of August.
We're going to get ahead of the curve. November 1st will be the 2023 Oktoberfest.
There you go. Exactly. That's a good call.
We try to keep it at August 1st or slightly later and not creep it too much further ahead. But I think people understand the needs economically and just
yeah, it's funny how people are about that, right? Because it'll be and this happens every year. They'll bitch it's August. Why is this out? It's it comes out in August every year. That's how it is That's how it's been for like 10 years, whatever. It comes out earlier every year. But then what happens is they don't buy it then, and then when it moves through, by like the time they really like, if it like here it's really hot for a while, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So it's like last year Oktoberfest didn't do great because you missed a whole window, sort of people couldn't have fire pits because it was so damn hot out as it was, and that's what they want it for, right? They want to hang around a fire with an Oktoberfest.
Crisp, clean fall air.
Yeah, exactly. So like last year,
Cool.
we did all right with them. I mean, they ended up selling through. So the good part about that is like people still bought them even after the fact. But
We've
during the middle of it, they weren't moving because people like it's too hot.
People know now. If you want to drink pumpkin beer in November, you have to buy it in August or September. It's just kind of how it is.
Yeah. People roll in and they're like, "Do you have Schlafly pumpkin?" And I'm like, we had 20 cases like a month and a half ago, but now no, because it's gone."
This is for as many people who only want to drink it in October and November. There's plenty of people who are ready for it the day it arrives, and they want to start drinking it right then.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for sure.
90, 100 degrees, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, that's the absolute truth about that. And then the people who lollygag on it, they don't,
Which is fine with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Because,
exactly,
like you said, after all the dust has settled and everybody has had their hand at pumpkin beers, Schlafly has been fortunate enough to be one of the ones remaining around, and and to be seen as one of the best, if not the best, option every year. So, yeah, it's really
I feel like there's
really cool.
probably like four that are the big ones. Yours, Southern Tears, Dogfishes, and then the fourth one is sort of every year it's a different one.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? There's a newcomer. Which, speaking of Steven's point, this year we had Whole Hog for the first time, and that did pretty well.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, Stephen, before you got on, we back in the day, because we just started canning more. Obviously, the variety pack behind me is one of the first things in our coming out of our new canning line. But back in the way back, kind of right at the beginning of my tenure with Schlafly, we were doing some canning with contract brewers out in Stevens Point.
That was the Schwartz beer years. Schwartz.
I still have this glass.
Oh, I love it. I love the can glass.
The little can-shaped glass. This one's pretty old too.
Yes, they did. They did a Schwartz. They did an IPA. They did a handful in cans, and now we're doing them all and a lot of them.
For the new Just a Bit Hazy IPA.
Yeah, let's see this. Let's see the haze on this.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty hazy.
It's
just a bit.
Rob, it's just a bit.
Just a bit hazy. We call it that because it doesn't have.
It's not like totally opaque.
It's not. It doesn't have. It's got a blend of characteristics from it being a 5% beer. It's got some of those qualities of being hazy with some of those tropical notes,
right?
But it still has some nice, grassy characteristics as well. You can really still taste a lot of the hops, and it just kind of has a nice, hybridization between, a real, super hazy beer and a traditional, IPA. So, pretty delicious.
Nice and juicy.
Yeah,
I'm dying here.
It hits you with a little bit of the bitterness and all those tropical notes, and then you get, like I said, a little bit of that bitterness, but it doesn't linger too much. It's not overly bitter, but you want some of it, right? So you're drinking an IPA. Do you guys see a swing back to West Coast styles like your original IPAs? Yeah, I mean, Tasmanian is still, I would characterize it as more of a West Coast style ale than an East Coast style ale. For sure. even though it has tons and tons of those, tropical pineapple notes from the Galaxy hops, its body and its characteristics are still much more, West Coast style. You still taste those grassy notes and those, there's still a little bit of hit of bitterness, even though it's not overwhelming like some of the really, really old school West Coast style IPAs were. Steven, I mean, what do you think? You know more.
Steven, where are you, by the way? Is that your house or is that a bar?
No, I'm in my house, but my house is in a neighborhood. I almost said overrun, completely surrounded by bars. It's called Soulard. It's an neighborhood in St. Louis. Consider it halfway between the Arch and Anheuser-Busch. If I walk out on the street right over here,
I think I've been in that neighborhood.
Yeah, but you probably don't remember it.
No, I don't. I don't remember it, but I remember drinking at like a bar in that neighborhood. There was a bunch of bars around. I can't remember the name of the bar, obviously, but
I think I remember that day, but it was a bit hazy. It was just a bit hazy.
Just a little bit hazy. Just a little.
Yeah.
We're all talking about these lighter beers, and I'm drinking a 9%.
Yeah, no, this is our house. We painted the walls this really cool color.
Nice.
22 years ago. I'd show you the rest, but it's actually I can probably show you this painting my wife did for the brewery years ago. Look at those hops over there.
Wow, very cool.
Yep, she did a whole bunch of.
Is that coming on the boat with you?
Yeah. All those 4 foot by 5 foot paintings are going on our small sailboat. No. Are you okay, Rob? Do you have COVID or something? Because I do.
Yeah, I heard you. I heard that. I don't. I don't know. I was just at Madison Square Garden, and that I probably do, and I haven't tested myself yet.
I just want to make sure I'm not contagious here through the ether.
No, we're far enough away. I could have it for all I know. I was just away, and like a bunch of people tested positive. So
it's going to get everybody, but we're not going to talk about that. That conversation dominates our lives too much as it is. So we'll keep it to beer and stuff. Yeah. This is artwork.
Yeah, I can still taste, so I think I'm good.
Yeah. As long as
you've got great taste.
That's what's important.
So I can taste all the beer, so that's all that matters. So I know I don't have it.
Yeah, you better be up for the tasting when Dan comes in on Friday. I remember doing that video with Tom a few years ago.
Yeah, we should. I'll replay it. I'll find it and replay it.
That would be fun.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, I'll definitely find it for that. That was great. I wore St. Louis. Yeah, the last hurrah, the last season. I wore that blue. I'll try to find it and wear that.
The blue Cardinals jersey or the Blues jersey?
Yeah, it was like an old, but it said the last hurrah. It had the Cardinals thing here. I have it upstairs. Yeah, because it was the last season of the old Busch Stadium. And when's the Schlafly Soccer Stadium open?
Shock. It's a shocker, all right. It's a big one.
Season, right?
Next, what'd you say, Dan? Next spring?
Yeah, 2023 season, I believe.
Yep.
Nice.
But they're starting events.
It's literally across the street from the brew pub. We're gonna build out a beer garden area in one of the parking lots right there. Hopefully, it's a stone's throw from the tap room. There's a cool video that Steven did actually, where he's standing in front of the stadium, and then they walk to the tap room, and you can see exactly how far it is to get from the brewer stadium to a beer in your hand at the bar. It's pretty cool. It opens up 2023 season.
That is badass.
Yeah, I mean that's from the tap room, right, Steven?
I'm standing on the roof of the tap room. I'm zooming in on showing how much of the ceiling work is done. They hang from the ceiling to finish the ceiling.
Steven's been doing every week a little Twitter video showing the construction of it.
You guys need to build a bridge over the highway.
Yeah, a little walkway would be really cool.
Yeah, we're going to use one of those space trolleys so we can just hang on and zoom in.
Oh, like a zip line?
Yep, a zip line
from Schlafly to the soccer stadium? That would be cool.
I still call it a space trolley.
If there's soccer fans, DC United fans, or you know,
Soccer stadiums are cool because they're more open.
yeah, we will open.
You know what I mean? Where as opposed to like football stadiums that are pretty much all enclosed in baseball, they're
Yeah.
more open, so they're really cool for like concerts and stuff. Are you guys a sponsor or just a neighbor?
Neighbor for now. I'm not sure of the level of sponsorship, but I do hope we sell a lot of beer. Maybe we'll sell more beer in the pub than the stadium, but I hope a bit of both. I will tune in from afar.
I'm sure we're making every effort to be involved as we can, because I mean it's a really great opportunity. Obviously, it's going to be good for business, so it's pretty exciting, you know, for the company. Yeah.
Crack that Kolsch.
Oop, there's a little bit
Yeah,
of IPA left in there.
Stephen had the older, you know, version, so we are in the midst of a transition and from Kolsch from bottles to cans.
Out with the old. Let's see the new one, Dan.
Yeah, new can.
In with the new.
And the good thing about that is, especially around here, you can take it on your boat. You can buy a 6-pack of it Friday night during the tasting, and take it with you hiking or whatever on your wherever your Saturday adventures take you.
Yeah, I mean it's, you know, there's a lot of really good things about cans. You know, obviously we're an older brewery, so we've got a bottling line that, you know, is really big, and it does a lot for us, and it still will continue to do so.
Have you had a hard time getting cans?
What's that?
Have they had a hard time getting cans?
Right now, it's not an issue. You know, we've got a really great team. We've got you know, part of our team that spends a lot. You know, their job is to work on these things and you know, get these contracts and negotiate these things. And he does a really good job in kind of securing these deals. And you know, we've pretty much guaranteed that we will have a supply for as much business as we'll be able to do with the new canning line, which we just put in last November, which is just now officially kind of up and running at full speed. So it's pretty exciting. You know, like you said, all the things you mentioned, you know, recycling is a big one. I know, like in Northern Virginia, a handful of counties that won't pick up bottles from your house anymore. So people
really
don't even buy bottles anymore. Yeah, Fairfax County and Alexandria, both, you know, you have to, if you have bottles, you have to bring them to the recycling center yourself. So another reason to have cans, you know, and it's just a small, you know, example of you know, reason to have it. But we're still going to do both. You know, certain beers do well in bottles. You know,
are those paper wrapped or are those printed?
They're wrapped. So you'll see the can itself. Sorry.
Okay, it's just so you put them on brights.
No, it's actually a stamped. You know, we're not pulling from the same you know, mass of cans that everybody else is.
Right.
It says Schlafly on it here. It says brewed in St. Louis.
Hold that up close, Dan. Dan, that's important. Hold that up close.
Yeah.
So
All right, so it still is a printed can.
Yeah,
you just put the paper labels on it.
Yeah, they're like a matte sticker. Yep.
Right.
But that's an important distinction, that it's not just a plain shiny can that everybody gets, which we have done before and may still need to on occasion. But
it's one of the reasons.
We do have a lot of our other cans are printed and smooth without the paper label too.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of both.
There's a little more flexibility with this, obviously. You know, so yeah, sticker, can.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
It kind of guarantees our supply as well.
Right, exactly. And then you can do whatever you want with the paper, with the paper labels.
But if you know, Kolsch cans become super hot, you know, you can, and you know, and maybe another style doesn't do as well, you're not stuck with a bunch of printed cans of one thing. And you know, it gives you some flexibility. It being new for us, the can market, you know, we don't know exactly what's going to do the best.
Do people in, say, the Midwest prefer? do you have? I don't know if you have any research about this, but prefer bottles or cans, or do you know? Like, I feel like around here, cans are preferred.
Yeah, I mean, I live out here, so this is what I see on a day-to-day basis is what the East Coast trends, if you will, and I think that it's been cans for a while, and that those trends are starting to make their way into the Midwest as well, and you're seeing more and more cans come around. Part of it is, people are only making them in cans, and so that's
Yeah, you don't
there's
have
not
any
a lot of
options.
option for it. It's kind of a chicken egg thing here. Do people want more cans, or is cans becoming more available, and that's what they get to choose from? But as I said a minute ago, certain beers I think belong in bottles. Pumpkin ale for one, is going to stay in bottles for us, and some of the darker beers. I'm certain there's tons of people who will be sad to see Kolsch go from a bottle to a can, but
Right.
I think the number of people that would be upset about that would be outnumbered 10-1 easily.
Yeah,
to
because
people
it's
that are
such a
happy.
summer style. You know
Yeah,
what
it's
I
definitely
mean?
a beer that does better for us it does well all year round, but it certainly excels in the summertime.
Hey Rob, I wanna weigh in, and Dan, on the bottle
Sure.
versus can preference. I've got a generally strong preference for a stainless steel can that's 5.17 gallons. I've got one downstairs with a wit beer on tap too. Sometimes a 13.2 gallon can is pretty good. In Schlafly's case, it can be 15.5 gallons too. So that's my preference for can versus bottle. All the other aluminum bottles, I'll take whatever the brewer puts it in as preference, unless you're going to a park or a boat or certain outside
Well,
things.
you're not gonna want bottles on your boat.
Like I just mentioned, oh yeah, that one's going to be 2.5 gallons. I'm getting the dimensions for the cockpit refrigerator, so our home brew, we will brew on the boat,
Oh,
can,
nice.
can stash in the cockpit refrigerator.
So you never have to come to port because you'll be fishing and have beer.
And solar array and rain catchers and hybrid engines, so we're good.
You're gonna be a regular Jacques Cousteau.
Well, I excuse your French, young man, but we'll make sure to stop by Annapolis or somewhere near you so we can come say hi.
That would be believe me, that would be a huge honor. It's always been an immense pleasure when you've come by to talk and chat beer.
Well,
So I would love
it's a
that.
real treat for us and an honor to be invited. So anytime you want us, we love the occasion to do it. So, and coming by boat would be fun too. So
Yeah, you could dock like down in Annapolis. We can meet up someplace. We first met at Lures. Remember that years ago? That
yeah,
event, that place in Annapolis.
I I had one of the most hilarious conversations with a customer there who had thoroughly enjoyed herself on many Schlafly beers. I'll share the story some other time. It had to do with the pronunciation of the beer. So
Of
actually,
the beer
I'll
or
just
the
tell you.
brewery?
No, I'll just tell you what that story was. We had these coasters that used to give a pronunciation guide on the back, but it wasn't an accurate, real pronunciation. The S Schlafly was spelled SH and then laugh like LAUGH. We all know that's pronounced laugh, and then LEE. So it looks like Schlafly, but that's not how you do pronunciation guides for words. I had never thought of this before. She said, "Oh, so it's
I get a
pronounced."
feeling I know who this person was.
I think it's probably a good friend of yours, Rob. No doubt, no doubt.
I'm almost sure I know who it was.
Especially at Lures, that was pretty funny. She pronounced it Schlafly, and I looked at her and I looked at the pronunciation and I thought, "You mean like the word slaughter?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "You have just won. That's perfect. That's like, how could you refute that? That's her pronunciation, and she's right. Slaughter, Schlafly. No, we got the pronunciation guide wrong. That's all there was to it. It was
Yeah.
so a memorable conversation at Lures.
That happened enough times that they changed it. Now it's LAFF.
Yes, and I
Instead
give
of
her
laugh.
credit. Rob's good friend at Lure's Bar for that Schlafly.
I'm
Schlafly
almost
event we did.
positive I know who this person is.
What are you drinking, Rob?
99% sure. She's not really involved in beer much anymore either, which is sad.
She was there with some friends and had a bunch, and she was funny to talk to, and she gave the ultimate pronunciation for the beer.
It's definitely I like to say it's a good conversation starter how to say Schlafly, because most people don't get it right the first time. So.
And Rob was talking about the SCH like Schnooks. What about Kolsch? What about words that end in SCH?
Yeah, but
What
there's
about
not
my-
as many. There's not as many of those. I couldn't remember if it was Schlenleys or Snoops. Snoop. What is it? Snoops. Snooks. I thought it was like Snoop Doggy Doggies. They're doing everything else, so why not? Why not have a grocery store?
It's Snoop. What about my first name, Rob?
Snoop Doggy Dog.
What about my first name? Steven.
Steven.
Rob. Wait, I got one for you. Rob Gosh.
Gosh, Dan. We can't even do Dan Rogers. I can't even do Dan Rogers.
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 Hey, if somebody's just tuning in, they might think we've had a couple of beers here, so we got to be careful.
I only had one, but it was 9%.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, if you weren't here at the beginning, this is probably the last opportunity that we're going to have to hang out with Stephen Hale in this capacity. It was a bit bittersweet, definitely a sad moment for me personally. It's been pretty awesome having you, as the face of Schlafly for as long as I've been here, and coming out. I'm sure that a lot of people that always ask me about you. So it'll be sad for me to have to tell them that you're not.
Hey, Dan, I'm flattered by those words, but wait, listen. I don't hear the fat lady singing yet, so it ain't over yet. Let's see what the future holds. I love beer. I've always loved Schlafly. I've done it for 30 years, 30 plus years now. So let's see what the future holds in terms of personal events until we sail the boat up to the mid-Atlantic coast and be near you guys for some events or something. Yeah, day to day.
You never know, Dan. You can get invited, and like when he goes on the West Coast tour. Are you guys on the West Coast? What's your footprint now?
We are on the West Coast of Maryland, which would that be Cambridge, and that's
the East Coast.
So we have
it's called the Eastern Shore, but the West Coast of it is where Foxy's has a place there. There's a bar called Foxy's there. I've been there with Harbin.
We just talked about that today because in the competition for the posters, the guy from Union was there, and he was like, "Oh, my buddy works at Foxy's, or he did artwork for Foxy's." So he was like, "I should have him submit a label."
And that's on the West Coast of the Eastern Shore, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, not the West Coast, not San Francisco.
We actually have opened a few more markets recently, but our distribution footprint is not very large. We're still predominantly in the Midwest. We've got Missouri and Illinois and Kansas. We've been out here in Maryland, DC, Virginia for many, many years. We've been in New York and New Jersey for a while as well. We've only the last few years we've been in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
We just opened up, started distributing in the West Virginia market this year. We're getting ready to start in. We started back up in Indiana last year as well. We were out of that state for a little while, and we're getting ready to start in Michigan next month, which is pretty exciting. Okay. We're in Tennessee and Kentucky as well. I'm not exactly sure if it's the entire states for both of those. I think it might be portions.
Right.
Same with Oklahoma as well.
So it's probably 15, 16 states, right?
Yeah.
That's a sizable footprint. Is Tom still around? Has Tom come by?
Yeah, Tom's still around. He actually was here in DC area a few weeks ago for his 50th anniversary from Georgetown anniversary.
Nice.
Tom Schlafly went to Georgetown University, and they had to postpone it for a year. So it's technically his 51st anniversary. They had postponed it for COVID, but yeah, he had his 50th. So he still comes around. You know, he
had lunch at the tap room yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I don't know exactly his involvement nowadays, but it's his baby still. He's still really proud of it, but operationally, I don't think he's involved.
Operationally, he's still doing the exact same amount of things he's always done since day one, which is well. Don't cut me short here when I say
product.
No, don't cut me short when I say nothing, because he was never involved in day to day, but he was always involved on the level with Dan Kottman in the direction of the business, and definitely on all the stuff you see. Here's a comment directed towards people who are brewers and want to start a brewery. Be prepared not to brew. Be prepared to be the person who does all the stuff. I could choose other bad words that nobody wants to do. It's paperwork. It's government compliance. It's kind of the headache stuff. Really, the fun.
Yeah, it's all the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, there's not a lot of glamour in the profession to begin with, unless you get to a certain point. But I feel like, and especially nowadays, you guys can address this probably better than me, but I feel like now first of all, there's so much competition, so that makes it this much harder. So you have to be one step ahead of them. Most of these guys start out and like human resources is the last thing they think about. Yeah. So nowadays there's always issues with that, which we've seen over the last year with all the rat magnet stuff. And then they don't understand all the government. There's a lot of the inner workings of it to get the product is insane.
Yeah,
I mean, starting a business period is going to be hard.
Right.
You add in alcohol compliance, I'm sure that adds a whole level of difficulty. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've always, whenever I think about starting a business of my own, I just get overwhelmed with the idea of all the things you'd have to do to make it happen. So it's like Edvard Munch. It's totally the screen.
Exactly.
If you want to maintain the glamour and glitz and fun of being a brewer, then keep homebrewing. And if you want to do it professionally, I don't know, have a great team, have a lot of money, have some smart people who are okay doing things that if you want to still be the brewer, they can do the compliance and deal with all the headaches. But there's a huge amount behind the scenes brewers really never see, but they're hired to do their job and they do it well. And owners like Tom and Dan have trusted the employees in every level, every facet of jobs. And eventually that included an HR person to deal with and process all of that. But the number one focus is what's the beer and the perception of that beer to the general public. It has to be great beer. Make good beer. If you get a brewer who shoots his or her mouth off or who behaves badly, time to get somebody else. If you don't have somebody who's good at taxes and government paperwork, find somebody who is. It's a massive moving thing that, one of your guests could be Fran Caradonna. She's our current CEO, and she has more beer experience than just about anybody in the craft brewing world right now. They used to carry Pete's Wicked Ale for their little distributorship years ago. She's wild. She's fantastic. She's brilliant, and she will share stories about the do's and the don'ts. It doesn't really fit in with Whitey's as much, Rob, but you would love to, I mean, in terms of retail sales and beer and cans and labels and all that. But if you want a mentor in the market, no, I'm not going to send people to her. She's very busy as it is. So
I'd love to have her on just to chat.
She'd be great. She is just fantastic to talk to about things like that. So as Dan was just saying, there's a huge amount in the whole world operationally. You're excited about a business. Well, don't ignore the sort of hidden part, the behind the scenes things, the paperwork and the compliance and everything. It's pretty vast. And then HR, and that you mentioned Rat Magnet in the Me Too world. Yeah, that sort of issue for owners, if the owners themselves are not
Designing a
perpetrators.
can.
Yay, Sarah
There's a
Frost.
person that just does this.
I'll single somebody out by name. Thank you, Sarah Frost. Brilliant stuff.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, we've kind of always been a very traditional brewery, but we're trying to mix it up a little bit, and kind of step out of our old school look and maybe trying to make it a little bit fresher, more fresh. Steven, correction. Which one is it?
Fresher is good. It sounds very German, fresher.
While maintaining our, kind of classic Schlafly, identity, if you will. So, but yeah, it takes a creative person to kind of balance that. So.
Exactly.
Dan sort of tied in with that. If we have another half a minute, and Rob hasn't brought this up yet because it wasn't really in the agenda and stuff, is the naming of beers. And I think Schlafly has become known for, there you go, pale, Kolsch, just a bit hazy, IPA, low-cal IPA. I am totally fine with all breweries naming their beers whatever they want. If it's called Mississippi Muddy, well, it's probably not a Helles. It's probably a porter or a stout. Whatever their name for their beer is, that's fine. I find it personally difficult because it's another name I have to remember and then tie that in with the style. And that's okay. I just can't remember extra names. I guess I've gotten lazy and I want the easy route of what's the beer? What's the beer? Even if the beer doesn't have a beer style. It's not in BJCP or something. That's fine. If you never want it judged, you don't have to put it into a category, but eventually you might. I just like to know what the beer style is. It gives me an idea of what the ABV might be and
and what to expect.
Yeah, no one's ever picked up a Schlafly beer and go, "What is it exactly?"
Only a couple of them. Only a couple of them. Some of our one-offs.
I've looked at it for minutes and still not figured out exactly what it was that.
11th Labor. Well, if you drill down into that, you'll realize that was one of Hercules' labors. So it gets you close.
I think I vaguely remember that beer.
Yeah, that was a beauty. Oh my God. One of my number one favorite Schlafly beers ever. And you wouldn't guess the style by the name. A lazy ballerina is basically my arms will be way out, but if my arms are like this, hanging like a lazy ballerina, evidently that's the name given to the trellis on which grapes grow. So that was a collaboration with Chandler Hill Vineyards using their barrels and some of their wine must in the production of the beer. And I was blown away by that beer. I would love to see something else.
With the exception of one or two beer names.
Yeah.
Everything's pretty straightforward from Schlafly.
Whatever happened to the Ibex beers? That's one of them.
So that was the second Ibex beer, that Lazy Ballerina. The first one was the beer that Steven mentioned was 11th Labor, which is a peach apricot Berliner Weiss. That was so good. I think I might still have a bottle of that somewhere too.
What was the one?
We still make.
We just sold it not that long ago. Actually, I had one left. It had the really nice, like brass label.
The very
yes. Somebody finally scooped that up not that long ago.
These beers are numbered, which is pretty cool. It says on the back here. It says number 704 of 5.
Whatever happened to that series? Do you guys still do that?
That one, not so much. We still do the Ibex cellar beers in the 330 milliliter bottles. A lot of the beers that were, some of the barrel aged stouts, the barrel aged beers, the beers that were coming out of the fooder tanks that are at the tap room are still
Right.
going in there, but they're St. Louis only, small batch things. We used to bring them out here to the East Coast, but the
I was
trend-
actually kind
the
of
trend-
sad when somebody finally bought that one.
Yeah,
I had
trends
grown
change.
emotionally attached to the bottle because I had moved it several times, and I was
As
just
long as you were
like,
dusting it off, I guess.
yeah, I was just like, why would anybody? And it was the last one, and I was always like,
I mean, I bet you the beer's still really good.
I'm sure
look
that
forward to
beer
trying
was
this one
killer.
still.
I'm sure that
yeah,
beer was killer.
These 750s, as you know, they just it was a very aggressive, abrupt end to that format of beer. Like people just did not want it anymore. And there's still a few people that make them, but I think because there are
Yeah,
so
but you don't
few
see a
them,
lot
they're
of
probably gonna
them.
do well enough.
Most of them overall are shelf turds.
Yeah, I mean, they were just overwhelmed. I mean, you'd go in there and there's just so many. It was hard to.
It was always a West Coast thing anyway. It really never translated to the East Coast.
Are you talking about the
Midwest?
You talking about the 750s, the size of the
Yeah,
bottle?
22 ounces and
Well,
750s.
So yeah, they're
20
similar,
is-
and it's funny. They're only a couple ounces, 3 or so ounces apart. But the 750 to me evokes special and champagne and special wines. That's the size. But the bomber, to me, the bomber never fit in the uber special uh, champagne kind of category. It's 22 ounces. It was a big bottle of beer. They often had a high price. To me, they should have had a price of I'm basically buying two 12-ounce. It's 2 ounces
Mhm.
shy of two 12-ounce. But the bomber is not a 750, and sadly, the 750 doesn't have a fun, fancy name like its larger cousins. What Methuselah and Jeroboam and those old biblical king names that are given to those. The 750, the poor thing, is just called a bottle. It doesn't have a fancy name. But at least the bomber at 22 ounces has a bomber name. If I'm wrong on any of this, I hope somebody chimes in and fixes it. But once again, I don't think I'm wrong. I think this is true fact, as it were, true fact, right? As opposed to a false fact.
Did you guys ever experiment with 16-ounce cans?
We still do. We got a lot of
still
them.
make them. Yeah,
But they don't hit distro, right? They're mostly
not in
like
Maryland.
tap room releases.
We do 12-pack 16-ounce cans. So it's kind of we call it our value packaging. We do some of the easier drinking beers, the year-round beers,
Like
pale
Texas
ale,
12 packs or whatever they call them.
12-packs. So they're
Yeah, well, they call them Texas 12 packs here.
Yeah, they have their
Maybe that's
they have their
18.
place. Certain markets do well with them. We do really well with them in the St. Louis market.
Okay, so you do use them, but they're not really widespread.
But not like you're thinking like 4-pack 16-ounce cans of double dry hopped,
Right.
kind of thing. We did one year. We did our IPA series in 4-pack 16-ounce cans, and it just didn't do that well for us. So we moved on, and when you're making a decision on the format that you do certain beers, there's a lot of things that go into that decision.
Right.
Chain placements is definitely a big thing for a brewery of our size that we have to consider. So having everything kind of more consistent in 6-pack 12-ounce cans just made a lot more sense.
Yeah, I can see that. I was just wondering if you got. I don't remember ever seeing them, but I was like, everybody experimented with them for a while, and now I feel like it's like sort of going back to 6-pack 12-ounce.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
With the new packaging, the new canning line that we have, we're doing the packages in the boxes. Here, 1 second.
Well, just like reeling in the beers, Dan, but a 6-pack wrap. It's we made big strides in the industry, removing the plastic snap rings that cover the can, and we went to I called it the hippie 6-pack ring. It was the cardboard ring, and when it was done well, it worked. But
Those
if
are
you
awful.
pulled one out, they weren't perfect long term. But this pack is far friendlier.
Well,
Cardboard.
the other good thing about this particular pack is damage-wise, right? Because it's got that much more protection. So, like, if something happens, like on the Pack Tech ones, it's still easy for them to break, and those paper ones are god awful. Those are the worst things ever
I mean,
invented.
the paper rings.
Yeah, those suck.
This is the first beer, this summer lager in the market in the new packaging. Everything else is going to be transitioning can-wise, is going to be in these boxes, and I'm pretty excited about it. Still very simple, very Schlafly, but very versatile.
Yeah, because I don't really know what kind of beer that is by looking at that package.
Yeah, we're going to work on that with the designer, Rob. But obviously, it's not very clear to the consumer what the beer style is.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
But even though
gentlemen,
it's
it's getting late. Oh, wait.
Even though it's still very distinctly Schlafly, if you can picture this beer, which we've been making for many, many years, and you can picture what it looked like even just 2 or 3 years ago, it's definitely much more fun. It's definitely less boring than it used to be. So, but yeah, if you want to, we can, whenever Steven's in the room, it's easy to just keep talking.
Wait, Rob was just saying it's getting late. Does that mean we're done with the preamble and we're getting ready to start the show?
Oh,
and welcome
Now we're
everybody in?
going to go to the real thing. We're going to actually have hard questions being asked.
Hard line. I'm going to say something about the little thing at the bottom. Happy 30th, Schlafly Brewing. Thank you for that. That's a nice nod to the 30 years we've been in business. I did a quick estimate, and it seems like there are about 5 or 6 per minute, which would mean we've seen that little message flash about 400 or 500 times this evening.
That's
I
good.
have not actually counted. I've been listening to you guys.
Well, at least we were that entertaining that you can listen to us, and we're like, well, can we get this thing over with? And I'm just going to look at this scroll at the bottom.
I'm glad it wasn't going faster. It's very nice.
There you go.
I'm looking forward to being in the store on Friday to taste.
Friday, we're going to be sampling Raspberry Hefeweizen, Summer Lager, Kolsch, and the variety pack.
Yeah, the beers in the variety pack. So
it'll be fun. Everybody 5 to 7 on Friday, so come on by. Unfortunately, Steven won't be there. Maybe we'll Skype him in.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just do a FaceTime for a couple minutes.
Could be.
Steven, we can just put you right there.
I think that's my future.
We'll put your interview on Lou. Remember, the other thing, I just have to say this because the coolest thing about that interview when we did that years ago was, remember, you came the day before and Tom couldn't come, and you guys actually came back the next day to do it. And I thought that was like the most badass thing ever, because I was just like, these guys are making time to do this. It was so cool. So
we did that for you, Rob. We did that for you.
And I will never forget that. I will always appreciate that. So
we do what we can. It was our pleasure. It's beer business is a good business. Oh yeah, look at that.
Look at that. OG.
Come get your button on Friday.
Oh, you got buttons. Buttons. Who's got the buttons?
I got buttons.
A lot of people know what that reference is, Rob,
So when do you set sail?
Was that a Go Ask Alice reference?
Yeah.
October.
Button. Who's got the button?
That's
I know
right.
the reference. I remember it from something. Sarah and I leave St. Louis first week in June. Spend the summer in New Hampshire, where I have not spent a summer with my family in 30 years. And then in September, fly down to Buenos Aires to get the sailboat and sail
That's
north.
awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. We sail north to Foxy's. Let's meet at Foxy's, huh?
There you go. If you say go up the west coast of the bay. West coast of the
Eastern Shore.
Eastern Shore. Exactly. Well, gentlemen, this was a pleasure. Steven, congratulations on 30 plus years, and congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
I hope to see you in person soon. Dan, I will see you in person on Friday night. We'll sample some great beers. We'll tell some more stories. It'll be a hoot nanny.
All right. A hoot nanny.
A hoot nanny. I love a hoot nanny. Thanks again, Rob. Thanks to Whitey's
Thank
and
you.
everybody.
Thank you guys so much. I'll see
And
you
thanks
soon.
to everybody tuning in.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Have a
Cheers,
good
y'all.
one. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That was fun. Yeah, come by on and try some of these beers on Friday nights, 5 to 7. So come on by, try the Schlafly stuff. It was great to talk to all these folks. Steven's an awesome guy. I'm happy for him in his retirement. I hope things work well, and I'll talk to you guys soon.